All right, so I have, as of right now, just some of my bigger shapes on the inside of the shoe determined. Now, of course, as I go in and I start adding some of these smaller shapes that I see in the shoe, I probably am going to find that I need to adjust and move these, and that's going to be completely normal. So again, if you're not, fixing and adjusting and erasing as you add these details, some of your bigger shapes, then you're probably doing something wrong. So it's only natural that the drawing continues to change as you add more information. So what I'm going to show you guys to do right now is I'm going to show you how to do the laces and the tongue. I'm actually going to start the laces first, and then I'll do the tongue after, because the tongue is kind of getting hidden by the laces because the laces are on top of there. So what I've done just to start with is I have basically drawn this big shape. I have sort of like this trim piece right here that goes around this area. So I've got that drawn on there. I have this scalloped detail here that I have not included. The reason why is because I don't know where it needs to go yet. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try to figure out where these shoelace holes need to go. And so I'm just going to basically start by just drawing dots where I think they are. I'm going to count how many I need. Let's see here. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Technically I have 7, but there isn't a lace that goes through that, so I'm going to kind of ignore this one for now. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What did I say? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I need to figure out 6, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by just putting like a dot where I think the bottom one needs to be and a dot where the top one needs to go, okay? And I would do the same thing with yours. So just put a dot where you believe the last one and the first one needs to go. And as you can see, I'm not making those holes yet. I'm just making those dots, and that's because, again, I want to make it easy for me to erase these and move these. And then what I'm going to do is essentially fill in the middle with the other 4. So I need to fit 4 more in there. And my laces are evenly spaced out on my shoe. But for some of you guys, your shoe might have laces that are not evenly spaced out because your design is different. So pay attention to that. So if you have some lace holes that are closer to others, then make those adjustments. So now I just need to get 4 more in here. So again, I'm just going to start by just making these just random dots, because that'll make it easy for me to adjust these and kind of move them around until I find their spots. Just kind of messing around with these 2 in the middle-ish. So that looks like, I think I've got it even. Just kind of mess around with those for a little bit. Just got them as dots. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and now make them into holes. Okay, so I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to make these look bigger. Now again, for some of you guys, maybe your lace holes are quite large, so take that into consideration. And again, every time I do something to this drawing, I'm making adjustments to something else. So I'm going to kind of erase those dots that I initially made. Again, you should still continue to draw pretty light with your 4H pencil. Remember that I'm drawing pretty dark just because I'm recording this and it's on the being projected up on the Epson. Need to move that guy a little bit. Okay, so I've got my lace holes. I can go ahead and add this empty one back here if I want to. I have one extra one right here. Never figured out what that one is used for, but. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with the very, depending on how you look at it, I'm going to look at the very bottom here. So I'm going to draw this section first. Now the important thing to remember about shoelaces, and I would watch this first before you start drawing this, but I think the important thing to know about shoelaces is, one, even though it's one complete object, you know, it's just one big long string essentially, I'm actually going to build this up as separate parts. So I'm going to draw this section separate from this section. So each one of these sections is a different shape, even though technically they're all connected. So I'm drawing these as all separate shapes. The other thing you need to take note of, and everybody's shoe again is different. For me, I have laces that go up and over the shoe, and I have shoelaces that are under the shoe. So up and over and under, and then some that start over and then go under. So those are all things that I need to think about, and I'm going to be drawing differently depending on how they're positioned on the shoe. So you can see that the ones that are going over, you can see that they are going on top of the shoe. So that's one big trick that we want to make sure that we grab, because that's, again, another thing that's going to make our shoe look very realistic. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start here at the actual lace hole. Now what you'll notice, and I'll point this out on here, is a lot of times these laces fill up a lot of that hole. So there really isn't a whole lot of empty space there. So that shoelace is really filling that up a lot. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start by just drawing where I see the bottom edge of it, which is right down here. I barely have any space left over. So it's basically filling up that entire lace hole. And then what I notice is that it really gets really wide as soon as it comes out of that lace hole. So I'm going to draw it pretty wide, just like what the shoe is telling me. And then what I notice is that as it goes back towards the back here, it's getting much thinner. And so all I want to do is figure out where it's got to go. And it's going to go, and a lot of times I'll do this too, I'll draw a dot where it needs to go so I know where I need to go with the drawing. So I need to go up here. It's past this edge here. So I'm going to go over here. It bends a little bit. And then it actually hops over. I see it above the edge of the shoe, and it's pretty thin there. And again, it's not perfectly straight. It's a lace. It's fabric, so it gets bent, tweaked, and kind of just change shapes a lot. Twist and turn. So there's my first lace. So you can see how I bent it when it came up over the edge. It goes above the edge of my shoe there. Because it's the shoelace, I shouldn't see anything underneath it. So the next step for me is to erase everything that it covers so that it looks like it really is covering it. And I actually have like a little bit of a seam on this lace. So I'm going to draw that. I can see the seam. So there's my first lace. Okay. Now some of you guys might have your first lace that looks like that. Some of you, again, might not. The trick, though, is when you draw this, you want to make sure that you erase everything that it's on top of, because that's one step I'll tell you a lot of kids forget, and then we ink it in, and they accidentally ink in things that we shouldn't see, and that makes the drawing a little confusing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to work one section at a time, and these shoelace holes are going to be basically landmarks for me. Okay, it's like my destination point for these shoelaces. Okay, so the ones on the inside, so now I've got an X. I basically have an X right under here. So now I need to start drawing that. Well, I'm going to again start with the one that's on top, because that's just easier. Again, it's going to be thinner back here, and it's going to get wider as it comes towards me. And it's going towards, because this lace is going to go up and through this hole. So I need to draw it towards it. So I'm going to start thin. I'm going to go wide right here. And I don't have a whole lot to show because this is a small space. And then I'm going to draw the one that goes under. And the same thing. It's going to be wide closer to me, and it's going to get thinner and smaller as it goes farther away. Right there. So that's the inside. Now one thing this does lead me to is that I can see how thick the shoe material is about right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to draw how thick that edge is. And that's something a lot of times I don't notice until I do the laces. So I'm going to draw how thick this material is. And it eventually gets covered up by the shoelaces, so now I can see how thick it is. Now this second lace, this is where I've got some things going on with my edge. I've got that scalloped edge that I keep talking about. I'm going to go ahead and kind of plug that in, cut into this shape so I can get that detail that that shoe has on it. It stops about, I just have 2 of these. Actually, it stops right there. Cut into that, make that detail. Now, the important thing is, a couple of things you need to remember. As things get closer to us, they get bigger, and as they get farther away, they get smaller. So this is how you can really show a lot of depth in your drawing, is just make sure that your shoelaces here in the front are thicker, and as they go to the back of the shoe, you make that shoelace thinner. If you follow that direction, you'll get that three-dimensional look right away without much effort at all. All right, so now to do this other one, again, what I notice is that the shoelace really does fill in this shoelace hole quite a lot. It gets really wide as soon as it comes out of the lace hole, and then it kind of comes up and over this edge, and it's going all the way over here to this side. So I've got a little bit of a bend, and then again it gets smaller as it goes away from me, and then I just see the end like that. So after I kind of mess around that a little bit, I like it, I'm going to erase everything that it's covering so it really does look like it's a shoelace. So notice how it's bigger here in the front, thinner in the back. And then I just keep going. I go one section at a time. Now, my next shoelace is actually up and over, goes under to this one. This is where you can drive yourself a little crazy sometimes with trying to make sure, okay, this one's over, that one's under, where's this going? So this one goes up and over, goes to that one. And again, don't try to draw these shoelaces perfect. Shoelaces are strings again. You know, they've got little bends and stuff like that, so. So there's my one that goes from down there all the way up there. Now here's the beautiful thing about shoelaces, is when you draw them. If you're a little off, it's nothing to get concerned about. It's always going to look like a shoelace. So even if your line is a little too short or you made it a little too long, you're still going to be very convincing with your drawing. So there's a lot of leeway with these shoelaces. And again, if you're one of those people that has a hard time drawing nice and neat, being in an area here like the shoelace might actually work to your advantage. So I'm just going to keep drawing these in. Building it up one section at a time. This one's wacky. Just make sure you're erasing everything that those shoelaces are covering as you go along. See, a lot of kids make a mistake with that. Now at some point I am going to stop on these, and it's when I get up near where the knot and the tie of the shoe is. Now if your shoe is not tied, I want you to tie it for me. Everybody's going to have to deal with it. I've got one of those two like little strips or holders for the shoelace here that goes over the shoelace. I need to draw in. All right, so I'm to the point now where I've got a couple more left. I've got the tongue of the shoe and the shoelace, the actual tie of the shoe to deal with. Now, make sure that your tongue does show, okay? Everybody's going to be different, even the styles are different. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to deal with the actual tongue of the shoe, and then I'll go back and finish up the laces. I can't really finish the laces until I get the tongue on. So for the tongue of the shoe, this can be a little bit of a tricky spot. Everybody's got a different design, so keep in mind that everybody's is different. Yours will be different than mine. But what you could do essentially is basically draw it the way that I'm drawing it and then fix it up to make it look like yours. So just again, give yourself something to play around with, okay? Now the tongue of my shoe actually goes above, slightly goes above this edge right here. So I know that I need to go higher than the edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and just, I see the, and I also too see the inside of the tongue of the shoe. So what I'm going to do is I'm just first going to look at my shoe, and I'm going to make a mark on my shoe where I see the tongue of the shoe hit the edge that I have. So right here in the front. So I'm going to make a mark where I see that happening. So that I believe is about right there. So this, where that tongue of the shoe hits this edge, I'm going to make a mark. Now the other thing that I notice is that the inside of the shoe, okay, so I see the inside of the shoe right there, or the tongue. I want to put a mark where I see that hit the back edge of the shoe. And again, when I look at it, it's to the right of my original edge, so this is going to be about right here. It's not too far away, but it's definitely to the right. Okay, so I'm going to make 2 marks. Again, you don't know how to draw something unless you know, one, where it starts and where it's got to end. So I always determine those things first. So if you notice this line right here, so this edge, try to point here, this is hard to figure out. Okay. So this starts here, it goes up, comes around, and then it tucks on the inside. That's all one line, okay? So I want you to watch me draw this. Again, I need to make sure it goes up and over my shoe. So I am going to draw this up. It kind of is like an upside down U. I'm going to come back around, hit this mark that I have here, okay? And then what I notice is that it kind of tucks on the inside. So I'm going to just draw that. Play around with that. So that is actually the edge of the tongue of the shoe, and it's also to the inside. I'm going to go ahead and erase this part that it is covering up. And then to finish it off, this is the sort of the icing on top of the cake, so to speak. To finish it off, all I need to do is make the top right here. And there I have the tongue. Now, the tongue of the shoe actually gets a bit lost in the shoelaces, so all I need to do is just kind of draw this edge until it gets lost, and then the shoelaces will cover the rest. kind of come through there. And then again, I just need to erase all the parts that it's covering. So spend a couple minutes playing around with that. And it's going to take a few minutes for you to play. So if it doesn't look right the first time, go about it again. Sometimes it might take you 5 times to do it. That's fine. It doesn't matter how long or how many times you have to draw it, as long as you are trying and you're giving it your best shot and you're giving yourself something to work with here. And again, everybody's design's a little bit different. Mine's more of a traditional tongue. Some people have some real elaborate ones. And if you're satisfied with what you've got for the tongue of the shoe, then you can start drawing your shoelaces even on top. So now you can finish those off. Just again, remember, smaller away from you and wider as it gets closer. What am I doing? Opposite. We should be getting close to getting to the point where we need to do the tie. So I've just got one more lace hole to put a shoelace in, and then I'm going to do the tie. If you haven't finished your shoelaces down here, do not worry about it, but let's go ahead and stop what you're doing, and let's do the actual bow or tie of the shoe. Again, make sure that your shoelace is tied. Okay? All right, so a lot of people, this scares people, because when you look at it, it's just all twisted up together. It's like one big hot mess. When you do this, now again, it goes back to what I said a little bit earlier. The nice thing is that if you're a little off, I mean, actually, and I'll be honest with you, you could be a lot off, and it'll still look like shoelaces, because if you look at it, the line isn't consistent. It goes from thick to thin. It twists, it turns. So anything that you do is only going to probably make it more look like a shoelace. So the first thing I'm going to start with is the actual knot, okay? So I'm not going to know how to draw this until I figure out where it's got to go first. So I want to figure out where it's going to go first, okay? And when I look at it, it is sitting on top of my shoe. So I need to make sure that it's built up probably around here somewhere. So it's not going to be down here for me. Mine's going to be up here. So look at your shoe and ask yourself, is this knot above your top edge, or is it below it? Okay? And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of make another little mark where that needs to be, so now I know where to start. Okay? So again, this represents where the knot is. Now, as far as how to start the knot, when I look at this basically just looks like just some squished rectangles almost. Some squished and twisted rectangles. So I'm going to draw them like that. So they're not big shapes, they're little shapes. I've got this bigger one right here, and I've got a little one right next to it. And that is essentially all I've got for my knot. So I only have 2 shapes to draw for the knot. So what I'm going to do, where I've got that dot, I can move that now. I'll erase it now. I'm going to start with my bigger shape. I'm going to take note of just how it looks. It's kind of big in one area and small in another. So go small, thin, thick. I'm going to draw that little shape. And then I'm going to draw the little shape for the part of the knot that's connected to it. And that just is kind of about right here on the side. Again, it goes lower than the big part, gets wider, come up here. And that's it for my knot. Okay? Now you might see 3 shapes, but I'd say for most people I'd probably see 2, but some of you guys might even see 3. So do those little shapes that you see that are in the knot. While you're doing that, I'm going to kind of clean up some of the stuff here. All right, so now what I'm going to do, and it really does depend on what's in front of you. I have actually the tail of the tie that's in front on this side, so I'm going to go ahead and draw that, and I see where it connects to the dot. So I just basically start where I finish, and I'm going to draw off of it. And I'm drawing this section that I see in front. So I see this the tail of the tie, so I'm just going to draw that. And I need to make that thicker. And then I've got that little kind of plastic end on it. And I'll work on this connection here a little bit better. So I've got that. Now I'm going to do the bunny ears. You guys know what I'm talking about, the bunny ears, the loops. I'm trying to teach my 6-year-old how to tie her shoes, so we're talking about bunny ears a lot. So I'm going to do the bunny ears now. And the bunny ears are these parts, the loops. So I'm going to start drawing that. Now, for me, I've got this real obvious seam on the sides of my lace. I'm going to take advantage of that, and I'm going to actually use that as the line that I'm going to draw first. So I'm basically going to see where it starts, and I'm going to draw it till where I see it finish, and then I will go and make it look thick. So again, I need to see where it starts. It starts behind here. I'm going to draw every little turn, curve, twist and turn. Comes back over there. Now I'm going to draw how thick it is. There. And then I'll just go and do the same thing on the other side. I'll draw all these parts. So either I'll draw the bunny ear or the tie first. I actually need to draw the bunny ear first on this side. And then the tie. Mine goes over this. laces and inside. And then again, make sure that you're erasing any parts that you should not see. Those shoelaces are not transparent. So whatever they are covering, it needs to be erased. All right, so after I'm done with the tie, then all I need to do is finish everything up. I need to do my last couple strips here of shoelaces that actually connect to the knot. Just to bring it all together. Okay, so there's my shoelaces. And again, if you're off, you're still going to be fine. Still going to be fine. So once you're finished with the laces and the tongue, guys, go back to just working on all these big shapes on your shoe. You know, breaking these down, going into more detail. That is your next step. And then tomorrow, you will be spending the entire day just finishing these up. And I will, of course, again, tomorrow I will show you guys details like how to do like stuff like this. I've got some dots here, some holes I need to get, stitching. I'll show you guys how to do that stuff. So, all right, that's it for demos for today.